Here's another update on the build of my flight simulator, and as you can see, it's in the process of flying right now. I'm doing an air hauler mission, this one going from my home base in Michigan out to I think somewhere in New York. But anyways, you can see that I have installed the roof. It's still kind of roughed in, it's just got a couple panels out there. I still have to add the side panels, and that will be a difficult fit, I think. Getting those to line up properly with the top and the windows. And then, as you can see, the window frames are complete. I've redesigned the side windows so they're no longer at the same angle, and that was done for simplicity's sake and also for some aesthetics. There used to be a panel up in this area that I had installed into the outside frame that I removed. So it's now just open on the back to the TV screens. But the effect when you're sitting in the chair is still pretty immersive. You can see that you're looking out the window. You don't see the top and bottom frames of the TV. You will see that frame where the right TV and the center TV meet. This one right here, I hope to hide behind a pillar that will basically support the roof. And when you look down here, I've got the instrument panel on a separate monitor running on a separate computer using Air Manager. This is a setup to simulate a Cessna Station Air, which is a better cargo hauling airplane than the stock 172. And as you look out the front, you can see the cowling, which when you're in the normal seating position, I'll slide myself up a little bit. In the normal seating position, you can just see the top of it as it goes by, and you can actually lean forward and see more of the ground as it passes down below. Eventually these screens here will be able to extend my field of view to about 120 degrees. I figure I'm thinking each screen probably be about 40 degrees. So that's the latest and greatest. Got the Air Manager instrument panel here. Now eventually this monitor will have some instruments, and that monitor over here will have some more instruments. Both of them will be hooked up on the second computer running Air Manager instruments. When I'm in the airliner configuration, that'll be the co-pilot's panel, and this will be the pilot's panel, and then in the center will be the GoFlight modules for landing gear, flaps, trim, radio, and nav aids. And then I just recently purchased a tablet which will go up here, and I will slide the GPS onto that monitor right there in the center. It'll be a touchscreen, so it'll make it nice and convenient. And then down here you can see I've got my GoFlight panels right here. So I've got the nav panel, some switches and some buttons, as well as the prop mixture and throttle control over here. Over on the left I have some switches that I have showed you before. They're actually functioning. They're hooked up to a Leo Bodnar board down below and hooked in by USB, and they actually function as switches through the FSUI PC. So that's basically an update. The top boards have this seam which will eventually be filled in. I will have an overhead panel installed as well, so when I fly airliner missions, they'll have an overhead panel installed. And again, here's the view from basically the cabin door perspective. You can see both cockpit panels as well as the view out the front window. And again, the framing just uses some brackets to attach that strut right there from the overhead window screen to the back of the cabin, which will make this a nice sturdy mount. I'll eventually replace these regular wood screws with something that looks more industrial and that gets bolted together. And from on top, I hope you can see this, how the framing has been put together. And coming down to the side, looking in from this angle here, you can see the angle of the overhead, the view out the window and toward the front. This is from outside the simulator. As we go around back to the inside. So that's the latest that I've been working on. I've been also working on cutting up a plexiglass panel for those switches on the side, and that's been kind of a booger. I am finding out that plexiglass does not cut real well, either with a jigsaw or with the drill. But you can see I've put some of the holes in for the switches. I'm going to actually put in some more switches here. Those will simulate a circuit breaker. And the switch that I'm going to be using for that will be these right here. These will be wired up, and like I said, they look like circuit breakers, but they're going to be wired up, and I'll have them be the numbers 1 through 10 and the keys F1 through F10. So they'll just slide right inside of these holes here, like that. So if I want to hit the number 1 to interact with the flight simulator, I just hit the button, and it simulates a key press as opposed to a switch. And that way, if I want to answer radio calls, make selections, I don't have to use a keyboard and a mouse to do that. I can hit those buttons and hopefully do that. But anyways, this has been a real booger. I'm not sure if this is going to work, because I think some of these holes cracked and chipped as I was drilling them. We'll see after I take the protective sheet off. And these were a real booger to actually cut. Had to file them smooth. And the problem is, when you use a drill or a saber saw, it actually melts the plastic. So sometimes you have to go back and make the same cut 3 times because it welds itself shut behind the drill. But hopefully it'll turn out all right. If not, very little money spent, just a little bit of time. So hopefully that'll work out. And that panel will be mounted right over here where that mouse pad is, and take the place of all that stuff there. So that's where we stand. Hope you enjoyed that, and I'll be updating as we move along, make some progress on this project. And again, it's working, it's flying, but still a long way to go. So talk to you guys soon. So here's another installment and update on the progress on my flight simulator. And as you can see, since the last video, we have basically completed the roof section. So you can see it's got a little bit of a oval shape like it would be at the front of an airplane. There's one plane in the panel right here, and then it kind of slopes down toward the side. And I'll probably add another one right in this area just to cover that corner up a little bit, but also give it the impression that it's angling down around the side of the airplane. So that's been the latest update since one of the big changes. I'm now using my CH yoke again instead of my Cytec yoke. I had some problems with the calibration on the Cytec. No matter how I calibrated it, using FSUIPC, whenever I went back to manual control, it was constantly drifting to the right, and no matter how I calibrated, I couldn't fix that. So I went back to the CH product yoke and say, well, maybe that'll work better because it worked perfectly well in the past. Unfortunately, that's having some problems, but now instead of drifting to the right, it drifts either way, left or right. So I think I'm going to go back to the Cytec. So I'm not sure if the problem is with my computer or what. I'm really not sure. And I've calibrated this particular CH product both in the flight control calibrations through Windows, as well as using the one through FSUIPC. Unfortunately, the Cytec, at least I don't have the software installed, maybe you can download it, cannot be calibrated through Windows. You have to use FSUIPC, and it just hasn't worked. It was very unsatisfactory to be fighting those controls all the time and unable to trim for level flight. So I think I'll probably put the Cytec back in. But anyways, we'll hopefully get that sorted out. I am still, as I've noted before, using FSX. I'm not using FSX Steam Edition, nor am I using Prepared 3D. However, I'm getting more and more frustrated with the flight sim because it is constantly getting fatal errors and crashing to desktop on these, so I'm not sure what that's all about. I have the same computer I've been flying flight sim for years with, and it's crashing several times on some flights. It seems to be around the Chicago area in particular, but it can happen anywhere where it just suddenly stops. Like it's a fatal error, shuts down the desktop, reboots itself, and it's very frustrating. So if I can't get that worked out, I'll try maybe the FSX Steam edition and then something else if that doesn't work. But I'm trying to get the FSX to work. I like that that product. I like the capabilities that it gives me, particularly with AI traffic, which I don't think I can get on the X-Plane. So anyways, been kind of frustrating. Again, a view from the outside. Roof is completely done. From a eye level, from the cabin door, this is what the screen looks like. It changes the shape of that window, which actually works quite well. Panels have yet to be finished off on the front there. So it's coming along. Work to be done, more with the flight sim now than anything else. I put one screw in my wall panel to hold it in place. I had that cut to the right length at the hardware store, and they cut it really nice, fit perfectly. So now I'm going to come to the back side here, and where that window frame has been made, I'm going to simply trace that pattern onto the back of the MDF board and then make my cut. So basically, just come in here with a pencil and make my trace. And that will then be removed, and I'll cut the window out and see how it looks. So we want to make sure that it's not cut too short. Now I made the first two cuts with my circular saw just because I know it'll give me a nice straight cut. I'm going to finish that vertical part off with my jigsaw, take my time so it looks fairly straight, and put it up and see how it works. So here it is after the window has been cut. Fairly straight line for the vertical part. I'm fairly happy with it, but we can always sand that later. Plus it will probably get covered up with some kind of a fabric or something with texture to kind of smooth over the edges. Next we'll put it in place. I pre-drilled some holes to put the screws in to anchor the MDF board to the frame, but I always like to finish things off by countersinking with a bit like this, just so that the screws sink in below the surface of the panel. Makes it a little bit neater. So here's the hole after it's been countersunk to get the screw to fit in flush with the panel. Wanted to show you a paper mock-up of the overhead panel. This is essentially based on a 757, which is my favorite airliner. I wish there was more stuff available to the flight simulator community for simulating these things, but these are the individual panels that I printed out from a website, scaled them to be the actual size, and then I eliminated some of the things that you just can't reproduce in flight simulator. But again, this is the essence of the overhead panel, and these buttons and switches will be replaced with actual buttons and switches. And as you're sitting in the cockpit, everything is actually within easy reach, so you can reach the whole overhead panel. So that's the concept of what I've got installed, or what in mind for the overhead panel. See you guys soon.